Hello everyone. So today we're going to be doing a battle of the 7.5 inch AR pistols. Okay, so I got a number of them in different calibers. I've done many videos in the past, but I've never kind of like shot different calibers, like all the ones that I have anyway, like back to back, one after the other, to kind of see which one I like the best. Okay, and it's one of those things that I've been I said, you know what, let me do this because I really want to kind of figure that out. So we're going to be looking at 7.5 inch in 4 different calibers, 9mm, 5.56, 300 blackout, and 7.62 by 3.9. Basically, your AK-47 round in an AR-15 platform. Okay, 7.5 inches. So first of all, let me say this: why is 9mm, which is a pistol caliber, even in this list? Realistically speaking, because it's actually a competitor. At one point it was very common for SWAT teams and a lot of these covert units to use like MP5s, and basically that was replaced by the shorter barrel AR-15. So that's why I think it's like really worth considering it. Okay, so the first thing I want to kind of lay out is the energy, because now I've actually done energy calculations on my own, which means I took like 5-shot groups through the chronographs. And I didn't do this all today. I've done it over time, and I've recorded it in my book. And then based on the muzzle energy, I did the energy calculation. So with the 9mm, right, using Tula, which is actually pretty decent in 9mm, the energy out of the 7.5 inch barrel was 402 foot-pounds of energy. And obviously, if you get like a plus P or something, it's going to be a little bit hotter than that, but it's not going to be a whole lot hotter. So 402 foot-pounds. Okay, the 5.56 in the 7.5 inch barrel, 650 foot-pounds with the green tip. Okay, so if you look at this to 9mm versus 5.56, because the 5.56 loses so much energy in the 7.5 inch barrel, it's actually a pretty close competitor, in my opinion, to the 9mm, right? Because the 9mm, I mean, the difference here is only about 250 foot-pounds of energy, and in this example, like I'm just using like pretty much a target, 9mm cartridge, and we're comparing it to a green tip. When I use pretty much any other any other 223, 5.56 that's not a green tip in the 7.5 inch barrel, the energy comes down to about 600 foot-pounds. Okay, so likewise, if we use a plus P, that's going to go up a little bit. So the gap here is not a whole lot. Okay, so I mean, certain benefits of the 9mm, for one thing, it's a lot less loud. Okay, whereas with the 5.56, we're going to find that it's very loud. So that could be again, that's a reason why I think the 9mm is definitely a competitor here, especially against the 5.56. Okay, so the next one, which is a favorite of a lot of people, the 300 blackout, 300 AC, and I have it in an 8-inch barrel. It's pretty close to the others, which is 7.5 inches. The barrel I have happens to be 8 inches, so it's close enough that I think it's worth we can still do this comparison. So the energy of the 300 blackout, I used American Eagle, 848 foot-pounds. Okay, 848. So there's a nice jump from the 5.56 up to the 3. When you go up to 300 blackout, and again, this is why 300 blackout happens to be a big favorite of people that like shooting short barrels. Okay. Now, one of the things to keep in mind though is when I've done actual penetration tests, the 5.56, when I'm shooting like steel rims, the 5.56 green tip does better at penetrating, or did better when I tested it, at penetrating the steel rims compared to the 300 blackout, despite the fact that it had less energy, just because it has a better bullet, right? It's got that green tip with that basically that penetrating core. Okay, so and then finally the AR-47 with the 7.62 by 3.9, 7.5 inch barrel. This had the most energy at 975 foot-pounds, and I used Red Army standard. So at the 975 foot-pounds, It's pretty close to what I tested when I tested the 300 blackout in a 16-inch barrel. I think it came in at about 1,000 foot-pounds. So basically the AR-47 is a hotter round. Okay, even like cheap Target, you know, Red Army Standard, Tula, it's gonna be hotter than your 300 blackout. Okay, so this is important as a starting point, so we know what kind of energy numbers we are looking at. Okay, so let's put this aside. So this is really going to be a very subjective video because this really comes down to like which one I'm trying to figure out which one I like to shoot better. Okay, which one is more pleasant for me to shoot, which one I might want to invest more in, you know, in upgrading, and maybe down the road getting a suppressor for. So that kind of thing. So we're going to start off with the 9mm. So this basically linear comp over here doesn't really do anything that's useful. The only reason this is on here was at one point I was using this as a training gun, and I noticed that a lot of people, sometimes their hand was drifting too close to the muzzle over here. So I just put this basically to make sure nobody shoots their hands off, and I never switched it back. So, and plus people like it because it looks cool, so that's why I kind of kept it. So this is a 7.5-inch barrel. This linear comp here really doesn't do anything. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be shooting 5-round groups at 100 yards. Okay, I'm going to try and shoot them as fast as I can and stay on target. And the reason why I'm shooting at 100 yards and I'm shooting it benched like this is because I find that if I'm shooting at distance, I tend to be a lot more sensitive to the recoil, and basically I can see how quickly if the dot stays on target or how much effort I have to make to get the dot back on target. So that's why I'm shooting in the position that I'm shooting in here. Let's make sure the camera's still running and I'm in a good position. Let me actually point it down just a little bit more. There you go. Alright, so we're going to do the 5 rounds at 100 yards as fast as I can go comfortably and stay on target. Okay? So I'm not using a magnifier, which I prefer to use, but let's see how this works. Okay, so no trouble keeping this on target. You know, that dot, like, it barely moved off the target. Okay, so let's put this to the side here. All right, so which one do I have here? This is AR-47. So that's one of the nice things about AR-15, the AR-15 platform is if you can basically swap uppers on this pretty easily. So the lower is the only part that needs to go through an FFL. The upper you can just order and have it come to your house. So with the with the AR-47 7.62x39, you just got to get these magazines, the AR-47 magazines. It will take an AR-15 magazine, but the bullets work better if you have this slight curve over here. They feed better, especially if once you get more than 5 rounds in there. So same deal here. Let's go to 100 yards. Okay, and again, I don't have the magnifier, which I generally prefer at that distance, but I don't want to keep switching magnifiers on and off. Okay, definitely louder. I could see the muzzle flash, like as I was shooting, like I could see the muzzle flash in front of me. I did try putting a flash can on this. It didn't make a difference. It was basically like one of those cone flash cans. I ended up taking it off because I just didn't see a difference. It still had a flash. I am considering trying a different type of linear comp on this. But let's take you off. The nice thing about the 7.62x39, it's like I happen to have a lot of 7.62x39 ammo stockpiled. So for me, it's like really cheap shooting because I have it from many years ago. Okay, so I've basically the 300 blackout. I'm using these black magazines so I don't mix it up with those other magazines over there. So it's a different color magazine. You gotta be careful, especially if you got 5.56 and 300 blackout on the table. You gotta be really careful not to mix up your ammunition. All right, so let's go 100 yards with the 300 blackout. Definitely much easier shooting, less felt recoil. I didn't see any muzzle flash with this, but this is basically 3 times more expensive than 5.56. So very pleasant to shoot in this 8-inch barrel. But yeah, it's just more expensive, right? You gotta deal with the fact that it's just more expensive. Let's get this out of here. Here. All right, so now we're gonna shoot the 5.56. So I've actually got 2 5.56 ARs. One's got the Core Valley linear comp. The other one's got one of those cone-shaped linear comps. I kind of wanted to see if there was a difference between the two. Again, I just wanted to shoot it side by side, see how I felt about it. So it's a lot easier to load those magazines if you open up the bolt. So here we go. So again, 100 yards. That's right. Okay, 100 yards, as fast as I can comfortably shoot it. Okay. By far the loudest, and it probably had the most muzzle flash, even more than the 7.62 by 3.9, but cheaper. It's the cheapest of the bunch to shoot, the 5.56. Put you there. Let's shoot that other one over there. See if that other muzzle device makes a difference. So again, 100 yards. Just a little bit. That's interesting. For some reason, I don't know why this seemed to have less recoil. I don't know if it's in my head. The flash seemed about the same. This seemed a little bit more easier because this has that cone in the front. Now that might simply has that cone style. These are cheaper. These are like whatever, like $15, $20. I want to shoot this again. I want to shoot these side by side again. It would have been nice to have lowers, ready for each one of these, so I don't have to keep switching back and forth. But I don't have that many lowers or pistol lowers. So I want to test those two. I want to test these two again side by side. The 5.56s. So I'm using Eggman. right, let's do these two, the 2.556 ones. Let's do these two side by side. I want to. I got a house up here. I have it in solar power mode. I'm gonna switch this to manual mode because I wanted to dim it down. I didn't want to do it in the middle of my shooting before. So yeah, it's gonna be a little bit less dimmer. All right, so let's try to shoot these things. You guys will be able to hear the ringing in the back. That's from the hitting the steel plate at 100 yards. I mean, easy work. It's a 2 foot by 1 foot target. This one definitely seems louder, which surprises the shit. Is actually surprising me very much. Again, a good thing that I'm doing this side by side. And it may not be the muzzle device either. Here, take a look. This is the Core Valley one. This is the more expensive one. These other things are like $50. What might be happening, it might be an issue of the gassing. This one might have a higher gassing, in which case the bolt is opening up faster, in which case I'm hearing more port pop. Let me do this. I'm going to fire another round. I want to see where it's ejecting. So this is definitely... I'm going to fire 2 rounds. I want to see where it ejects. 3 rounds. I'm just going to shoot this at 30 yards here. So that's going about like 245. So this 3 o'clock is going a little bit more forward. That's at 2 o'clock. Yeah, it's up to like it's ejecting up about 2 o'clock. Let's try the other one. We're using the same ammo. We're using Igman. First of all, let's see where this one ejects. It might have just been my imagination with the noise, but we'll see. Because the other one seems louder. I don't know why. It seems louder. Okay, so let's see where this one ejects. This one's like freaking ejecting at 1 o'clock. This one seems to have more gas, but for whatever reason, this one seems to have a little bit more gas, but it seems like for whatever reason, I don't know exactly why, it seems a little bit more comfortable to shoot. We're going to shoot this out at 100 yards. Definitely, it's like almost at 1 o'clock. So this one definitely has more gas, but it's also quieter, and it's got a much simpler muzzle device. It's got this cone one over here, and I don't know why, but that's a very interesting point that this one is actually the quieter one, which is interesting because down the road, like if I ever decide that, hey, all right, I want to make this a 10.5 inch or something, right? I can use this upper for, like I'm going to keep this one, and I'll, you know, maybe now the only thing is that this one over here, I have had this out to 500 yards, okay, with 77 grain ammo. So I got to compare I got to do an accuracy test between these two to see how this one groups with different ammo. Because this one I know is fairly accurate. I've had it out to 500 yards with the magnifier on it. So that's something we'll do that in a different test. But yeah, for whatever reason, that one's a little bit quieter, a little bit more pleasant to shoot, and that's the main thing I was trying to figure out today. Amongst these different AR pistols that I have, which ones do I like shooting the best? I mean, without a doubt, the 300 Blackout was the easiest to shoot, the most comfortable to shoot. But it is, I mean, it's between, you know, as far as the power, what is that power again? I mean, as far as like the energy, I mean, it's only 100 foot-pounds of energy less than the AR-47, but on shooting practical, you know, shooting steel rims, from what I recall, it didn't do quite as well as the 5.56, and the AR-47 was able to penetrate the steel rims. So as far as barrier penetration, it did not do so well. Obviously, the 9mm doesn't do shit against steel rims. It bounces off. I do want to do one more test. I want to shoot the 7.62 by 3.9, and I want to compare it to my AR-10, to my AK-47. Right, I have a short barrel one. We're going to compare it to that. So let's put you back on there. All right, so I'm going to shoot this. So I'm going to put these mags. That's the 300 Blackout there. I'm shooting Wolf Performance. All right. So I want to shoot it. I want to shoot this. This is a 10-inch, so we're not exactly comparing apples and apples here. I want to compare these two side by side and kind of see how it feels like, what the recoil feels like, how well I'm able to stay on target at 100 yards. Again, the target is 2 foot by 1 foot, so I mean it's not hard, but still you gotta, you know, if there's any recoil, you're gonna have to work to get back on target. Okay, so this is the AR-47, 7.62 by 3.9. All right, let's do that. AK-47. Fucking safeties on these AKs, man. It takes, this one's tight, stiff. I definitely could see a lot more muzzle flash. Do one more time. I'm a little undecided as to which I like better between these two. Do a few more. 4, 5, 6. Yeah. I mean, working the safety on the AK and just getting the mags in and out. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit more effort. Especially like over there, I was in an awkward position, you know, like reaching out. So no matter how comfortable you are with AKs, I mean, in certain conditions, right, whether like you're in an unconventional position or whether you're working in the dark, right, under some circumstances, you're definitely gonna struggle more working the AK just with the mag changes and charging the handle and that stuff. You're definitely gonna work more than with an AR-15. Same deal. Let's work these two side by side. Definitely moving. AK is moving me a little bit off the target, and a little bit more flash, a little bit louder. It's a subtle difference, but you know, if you're going back and forth, you know, let's put this way: if you're only shooting like 5 rounds, it's not a big deal. It's not a big difference. But if you're going to be doing like dumping a whole magazine, one versus the other, I mean, the AR-47 will definitely be more pleasant to shoot. Let's get you off the table. So again, this is a 10-inch, so it's not entirely a fair comparison to the other. So I just kind of wanted to see how that measured up. You guys here. I want to shoot that 300 again. I think we're going to finish off with the 300. So I'm thinking, like many other people have said, I mean, the 300 blackout is, you know, especially like in the 7.5-inch, 8-inch. I mean, it's definitely like it's basically made for it, you know. Just too bad the damn ammo's so expensive, you know. Same deal, 100 yards. Smooth, easy shooting. No muzzle flash, not much recoil. I mean, the recoil wasn't terrible on any of them. But yeah, I mean, again, trying to figure out which is, I mean, obviously the 9mm is the cheapest. You can shoot steel targets up close, like you can shoot this at like 15 steel targets at 15 yards. So you know, I do like 80% of my shooting with this. So this is extremely practical for training purposes, simply because you can shoot the steel up close. You know, like as far as like which I like better, you know what? I'm glad I got all of them. Like I said, I haven't shot them all side by side, back to back. You know, that 7.62 makes sense for me because I've just got lots of 7.62x39 ammo stockpiled. The 5.56, same deal. I got lots of ammo, but it is louder, so the loudness is annoying. I definitely prefer shooting the 10, you know, the 11.5-inch with my 5.56. I definitely prefer that. 300, you know, 300 blackout is really nice, but again, the ammo's a little bit more expensive. So I think, like if I'm going to decide like which one, like what I want, basically which one would I want to put a suppressor on? Good thing about this is that if I get one for the 7.62x39, which is a 30 caliber, it'll also match up pretty good to the 300 blackout. So that's you know, so that kind of makes sense. And if I get a 30 caliber suppressor, well, the threading is going to be different, so it wouldn't go on the 5.56, even though it's a smaller bullet. I'd have to get an adapter. But that seems to be the way to go. right? Because I happen to have lots of 7.62 by 3, 7.62 by 3.9 ammo, makes sense to, if I get pressure, to get it for 30 caliber, put it on the AR-47, because I'm going to do most of, I can do a lot of shooting with that. But knowing that, hey, down the road, if the 300 blackout ammo gets cheaper, I can always switch it over to this. That's kind of where I'm at, I think, with this. So again, there's a lot of this is just subjective. This is kind of like me shooting these different uppers and seeing like which one feels better, which one do I feel like I would want to shoot more. Like if I had like, if 300 blackout was the same price at 5.56, yeah, dude, I'd get in like tons of 300 blackout, but it's not. So that's the reality of it. So anyway, drop some comments. Let me know what you guys think, okay? And I'll talk to you all soon. Hey, I want to give you guys an update. I did a little bit of accuracy shooting at 100 yards between these two 7.5-inch 5.56 AR pistols. Okay, so the tan one over here to the left, which actually somebody gave me this one. Somebody was moving into one of those communist states, and they couldn't take this gun with them. So they gave this to me as a gift. So this one gets about 4 inches at 100 yards with target ammo. This other one over here, what appears to be a louder one, gets about 5 inches. Okay, so a small difference. For again, some crazy unknown reason I haven't quite figured out. The tan one here seems to be a little bit more gassed, right? Because this is shooting more towards like 1 o'clock. That one's shooting a little bit more at 3 o'clock. So despite the fact that the tan one being a little bit overgassed, it seems a little bit quieter than the other one. I haven't quite figured it out. It does have, it's got this type of a linear comp in the front, which is basically a cheaper one. On other guns that I have tested this on, like on my 7.62 by 3.9, this tends to be the louder one. And this one over here from Quell Valley generally tends to be the quieter one. So it's hard to tell what's going on here. There might be other things, like for example, there might be it might be that this bolt carrier might be more efficient, whereas that one might be leaking more gas. I don't know. But my conclusion is, since this one here tends to be a little bit more accurate, right, about 4 inches at 100 yards. In most of my other ARs, they all get like 2 inches or better. Like most of them average in like 10.5, 16 inches. It's just that when I go up to the 7.5 inches, the groups, for some reason with the 5.56, seem to open up a little bit. So my thought is, since this one over here is a little bit quieter, seems to be shooting a little bit more accurate, I might invest a little bit in this one here. I might get it an adjustable gas block, so I can gas this down a little bit. That might quiet it down, because a lot of the noise does come out of the ejection port. And also, I might try a different linear comp on this. I'm thinking of getting a JMac, which has an internal cone, and seeing how that does on this one. Okay, so yeah, those are my conclusions from today's testing. So and over here is the grouping that I shot with this. So this is the Igman over here. So 5-shot group. Like 3 of them came in really tight over here, but again, this is most likely the ammunition, because it's target ammunition. And then I had these 2 up here, so the whole group here was 4 inches. And then I shot Wolf Gold, which on a lot of ARs I get like I get 1 inch at 100 yards with most of my 10 inches and 16-inch ARs. On this, it seems to open up a little bit. So I got 4 inches here. So yeah, I'm gonna see if I can try an adjustable gas block on this, and also a different linear cop, and see if how I like shooting that gun.